I will tell you that the influence of a coach is bigger than any other influence of any professional job because they could either make or break an athlete, not only in their sports career, but in their life. Because there's things to this day that I will not do because my coach in high school told me not to. And it's just a discipline that's ingrained in me.
Welcome to the Good Work West Texas podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Payton, alongside Leslie Crisp, and we are talking today with Tori Martinez. She is on staff with FCA in the Permian Basin and as an administrative assistant. And then also Talor Nunez is with us, and he is a board member. And so really, we just want to have some conversations regarding FCA, and part of the newness of this podcast is really just to talk about the good work that's happening in this region. We feel like sometimes the negativity of Midland or our communities can drown out some of the good work that's happening. And so we really want to highlight that. We want to talk about different ways that people can get involved. And so we just thank you for saying yes to coming online in the podcast and talking to us about your stories and what you do in the community. And so we just appreciate that. But Tori, we're going to go with you first. It looks different on every podcast, but sometimes we have executive directors. Today we do not. Like I said, you're on staff as an administrative assistant, and you've been with them how many years? Kind of tell us a little bit of backstory on that.
So I started staff-wise, I started in June of 22.
Okay.
But I got on the board of Permian Basin FCA in October of 21.
Well, tell us about how you got involved with FCA and kind of your role in what you do, a little bit behind the scenes. And
Okay. Well, FCA kind of started for me back when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was Coach Eddie McHugh brought it to Kahoma. So that was my first time to ever be involved in a FCA huddle. And then our oldest son, Tristan, was involved with Mr. Marks at Lee in their huddle, going to camps. And then Kyle, our middle son, when he went to Midland Class School, he was involved with their huddle there. So, and it wasn't till actually October of 21, Kyle was gave his testimony at Fields of Faith. And Taylor's mom we were talking to her, and Elizabeth is like, well, why aren't y'all serving on our board? I'm like, well, nobody's never really thought about it, and nobody's really asked. I mean,
yeah.
and so from there, we started the conversations, and Andres and I both decided to jump on board and serve. And at the time, I was working at Midland Class School and doing their admissions, and I was an athletic assistant, um, helping with scheduling and everything. But Kyle was about to graduate, and it's a good role for somebody that has students at Midland Class School to get involved. So I wanted to step away from there. And Marcus Gardner was our director at the time, and he's like, "I got the perfect job for you." So,
Don't you love those conversations?
yeah. So, and knowing Marcus for a long time, it just seemed like the right fit and right direction. And when I started, it was just basically Marcus and I and two part-time reps.
Wow.
And so going from there to where we are now, it's been a huge change. So, because we're up to, I think we have 8 staff members now. And we have our executive director, 2 administrative assistants, and then 6 reps.
So a lot of growth just in
Huge amount of growth in a couple of
four-ish,
years. No, more than 3.
3 years. 3
3
years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible.
Mhm.
That's good. I don't want to skip over this because I feel like just to see that you're a product of FCA and what that meant in your life
Yeah.
as a student,
Hmm.
and just to see that come full circle.
Yeah.
I think that
It was really cool. And and I'm sure we'll get into it later. Mr. Marks, Ken Marks, that started FCA, he was a mentor to Coach McHugh. So to see now how it all just comes together is amazing.
yeah, just that
So,
investment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you get the privilege of getting older and seeing, like all those things come to fruition.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
awesome. So, um, Taylor, what about you and your involvement with SCA? And I know you maybe are a board member, but I think you're a huddle leader and maybe some other things as well.
Yes, ma'am. FCA is near and dear to my heart for many reasons. When you talk about Mr. Marks, the Marks family, they started in 1983, and that was when we had Spike Dykes at the time was a coach at Lee, and Mr. Marks had his kids at Lee, and coach told him, "Hey, why don't we have FCA here?" And he was like, "I don't know. I don't even know what that is." So he figured it out, and they started a what we call a huddle, which is basically a Bible study, and they were diligent in just having those Bible studies, whether it be at the high school or at their homes. And then they took kids to camp. It used to be at Estes Park in Colorado, and then over time it changed to other locations from the '80s and on. And when you think about it, it was just them, the Marks family, and Eddie McHugh that were taking those athletes to an FCA. Essentially, it's a church camp where you're playing sports all day.
Right.
And from that to where it is now, I went to Lee and I was under Mr. Marks, and he led and discipled that Bible study, that huddle. And he took me to that FCA camp in Abilene, and that's where I got saved. I understood the good news for the first time. It changed my whole life, and it changed my family's life.
Mm.
Because my brothers, I have three younger brothers, Caleb, Isaiah, and Elijah. We all got to go play college football in some range, some form or fashion, and all of us got saved through an FCA camp, hearing the good news, and we all became huddle leaders, and we all became Bible study leaders, and it changed the way that we lived, changed our lives, changed athletes that we've been a part of's lives. So when I went to Tech, I didn't know that FCA was bigger than just a camp in high school. And when I realized that it was there in Lubbock, I was like, wow. And then on top of that, you had Corbin Young, who came from Howard Payne. He was the area director here in Midland while I was leaving the Tech. Then he leaves the Tech and becomes the director over there and leads the FCA huddle there. And now I think he's like the head discipleship guy for all of FCA at this point.
He
Or
just took over West
Steve,
Texas.
so Steve Keenum, his son is Case Keenum, the quarterback for Houston, and went to the NFL. He has been in charge of FCA as is it regional?
Mhm.
It's a huge area. And so all of that's connected too, because then now Corbin is taking that role. And Corbin discipled me and all the guys in Lubbock. So when I left Lubbock, finished up school there and came back here to Midland, we didn't have very much here with FCA. I mean, it was pretty much like the couple huddles that we've had. We had an area director, and I think Jocelyn was our our full-time rep.
Mhm.
And so I was like, this needs to change. And it just so happened that God worked through everything, bringing in Marcus and making shifts. And then we had Tori. Honestly, the Andres family as a whole totally transformed FCA because I mean, you look at now with FCA and what we've done, we have the All-Star games, which was a dream of mine. Abilene had been doing it for 20 years and we've never had it. Now we're about to have our third All-Star games with the best athletes in the Permian Basin, football, volleyball, and golf competing. And then on top of that, they're hearing the good news. There's baptisms going on during our All-Star week. I mean,
That's
things we
amazing.
never thought would ever happen. And then you now have kids that are leading and sharing testimonies, and they're leading Bible studies, and they're going to college after these all-star games, and they're starting their own Bible studies. And so I look back at all of that history and I think this is absolutely amazing what God can do through the influence of coaches and athletes in the game that we love, which is just sports in general.
Yes. Yeah.
And so just taking all of that in, that's why I truly devote myself to FCA. And then every single person we have on our board now, like they are devoted to it. And I mean, I've seen different boards in nonprofits, and I'm not in any way talking about other boards. I'll just tell you, like, when it comes to FCA, like every single person on the board, they have a role, they have a job. We know how to lead things, we know how to build things, and the momentum just keeps growing. And I can't wait to see as we're getting into youth sports now, it's nationwide. I mean, we had even Blake Stewart talk about, Blake Stewart is a lot of influence in sports. He's now going to be leading in the youth sports realm. So we have a separate board and we'll have a separate director for that.
Wow.
But you think about Bible studies and environments and teams of youth sports being now led and biblically led. I mean, that's where the Permian Basin is heading. So
That's
this
awesome.
whole nonprofit that has started with just basically Eddie McHugh and the Marks family figuring out that Spike Dykes said, "Why don't we have Bible study or FCA here?" And now, boom, where we're at now.
And
I,
saying yes
it's
to
like,
that. I think that's the story. That's what all those things that you said about growth and everything, it all involves somebody saying yes, and
yes,
to knowing their place and how to get involved. And hey, I'll lead a huddle, or I'll walk with students. And lots of different things, because I want to talk about different, but I love just the weaving of that legacy really that has been built in this region. So I love that you shared that. Tell us a little bit about maybe when at Every Neighbor, we believe in the value of people in general. Like, we believe everybody has a skill set, everybody has something God given, that a role that they play. Sometimes for people that's on a stage, sometimes that's behind the scenes, sometimes that is, donating Gatorade. I mean, it's all the little things, too, that you don't see behind the scenes. So, um, but we kind of want to know your stories of, like, what was it in your life that who was that first person, or maybe a community of people who first showed you what it meant to serve and to give back, and was that example for you, if there was somebody? So we just kind of want to hear a little bit of your stories, because we believe the people, it, the programs are important. It's the people that make the difference, and just being able to say that yes. And so we want to hear a little bit about your story, and just your background of anybody who's played a role in that way.
For me, it'd be my parents. They have been, I mean, they brought brought us up in a Christian household. My grandfather was a pastor. Um, so I've always been involved in church. Always, church has been number one. God has been, at the
Mm,
top of everything. But my parents they just give, and they serve. So my dad was always lay pastor, or if anything going on at the church, they called my dad. And my mom was the one that was always there at the school helping and volunteering. And so seeing that example of
So is this in
just giving.
Kahoma?
This is in Kahoma.
Kahoma.
Yeah,
Okay.
little
Okay.
town of Kahoma.
Little town.
They were always a part of a board. My dad served on school board, and he was booster club president. And I mean, they're just always there, and seeing them um give not only to us, it wasn't just about our family, it was about making it better for everybody.
Betty,
And that's, yeah, they have been my biggest
I love that.
leaders,
Mhm.
or
It is
examples.
examples of
Hmm.
leadership,
Hmm.
true leadership.
So
What about you, Taylor?
I've had many people in my life show me what service looks like. I would say I brought up Corbin Young already. Corbin's one that I've spent a lot of time with, and he showed me how to live a life of being a disciple maker. And then Mr. Marks, I owe him everything. You know, he passed away. Very feels very recent still, and for the way that he served everybody and always gave in his time, that really showed me a lot. Even when after he had beat cancer and he was pretty much on the last few years of his life, he still wanted to serve the athletes and go give food and be there for them when he could barely walk and barely do anything. So that to me shows that there's way more that I can give.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's just, I think it's important for just our audience to know, and like, just to inspire and encourage people that there's a place that you have in other people's lives, and you may not even realize how much they're watching you. I would say, um just to have you guys there, and to be able to invest, and see that investment that people have made into you, and then also be able to be at a place where you can say, like, well, I can do this. And just to know that you're leaving a legacy for people that have invested in you, and then you're being able to pass that on. So
Mhm.
I love those stories. And it it starts small. It's in the small things. So, um, anyway, um, were you going to say something?
I am curious when we're talking about Christian athletes. So, thinking about our junior highs, I have a child in junior high,
Hmm.
and I think 100 and something girls went out for the volleyball team, 12 can make it. So, when we're talking about kids, students that can be involved with FCA, are we talking about only students who've made a team? Can anyone, whether they are or not an athlete, if you will, inside of the school system, be involved in what you're doing inside of the schools? Can you tell myself, but also maybe our audience who's listening, that the name of the organization could lend itself to feel like some, does it make
Mhm.
sense what I'm
Yes,
asking?
yes, it
So
does.
so you might think of yourself as an athlete, but you didn't make the team. So can you help me understand what that looks like in these huddles inside of the
Go ahead.
schools?
I would tell you that Fellowship of Christian Athletes is not specifically towards someone who made the team. Anyone can be involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I mean, I've had kids just in our own Lee huddles that they've never played a sport, but they know the friends, they want to read the Bible, and that's what we do. I will say that the beginning of FCA and the reason the FCA was started is that people were recognizing when you had Michael Jordan at the time that they were able to put their name on a brand. That was very new at the time. And so when people recognize if you could put an athlete's name on a brand and influence this many people to buy something, why wouldn't we just put a Christian brand on them? And that could transform who knows how many people.
Right.
And at the time, the most well-known people in the world were athletes and coaches. And still to this day, that shows to be true. It's not actors. And so I find that to be really cool is that we're just utilizing the influence that naturally is in our world to be able to help reach as many people as we can. I mean, you probably have so many examples of people that have never played a sport that they lead a Bible study, they're leading the huddles, they're a part of the huddles. I mean, look at us. I'm a has been, and I'm a part of FCA. Like
For sure.
we are still doing it.
No, and I know last year when I went to the camps, and I love that question that Leslie asked because you guys have started to incorporate, I believe it was a couple years ago, I think, but when I've been out uh to the camps, you've had trainers there. I mean, everybody that's involved, there's so much more than the people that get on the field. And
Mhm.
so I think that's also another aspect of just to see all the layers of ways that people can be involved in that.
Mhm.
And it's in a behind the scenes capacity of um, wrapping tape on guys' ankles, or the girls or whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
So I know that that is something that I had noticed. And
Mhm.
so I love it that it's just open to whoever, but it's also those layers of individuals who are involved, in those events. So
That's exactly right. I will say, like, when you look at like the resources that FCA brings to the table, whether it be like Bible study tools, normally what they do is they will apply a biblical teaching with an athletic principle.
okay.
And that really helps people that have any type of sports minded background, athlete or not, to relate to the Bible. And so if it's like, oh, I'm dealing with adversity because I had an injury. Okay, well, here's an example of adversity in the Bible. These two are related. How can you apply it to your life? That's usually how it's connected.
I love that.
Well, and I will say, uh, kind of to your question, most of our junior highs in Midland, Odessa, and our surrounding, they do them in the mornings or at lunch, so everybody's welcome. We were giving them the tools to go and maybe within their sport group or just their friend group to start a what we call a huddle, a small group reading the Bible. So we're just trying to give them tools. It's not necessarily within their sport. We would hope it gets there,
Right.
but we're open to everybody to come.
Hmm. Yep,
Awesome.
definitely. And what's amazing with the junior high kids, I love it. When I go watch their huddles, they lead, and I'm not trying to be like rash on adults, but they lead Bible studies better than adults do. And we teach them four simple questions. It's called Discovery Bible Study. So they read and then they say, what did I learn about God? That everyone answers. What did I learn about people? Everyone answers. And they say, how will I apply this for the next week before we meet again? And then they say, who am I going to share this knowledge that I just learned with this week? And it's what's cool is like these kids, they know each other by name. So they'll do their follow-up study. And I've listened to junior high kids, they'll be like, hey, you said you were going to tell your mom last week. Did you do it?
Oh,
And I'm like, wow,
I
like
love
talk
that.
about accountability, at a
Mhm.
junior high level. Or they'll say, hey, like, I didn't know that. I just learned that and I'm going to go share that with my grandma. And like to hear that coming out of kids is just so good. Like we have talked about on our ministry team is that we should not be leading. We should be creating the leaders and the leaders should be creating other leaders. And that multiplication process obviously is discipleship itself. But you're seeing it even in the junior highs. And I think that that is amazing.
One of the boldest with the most reckless abandon living creature on planet Earth is a junior high child. I mean, they're just, if that could be channeled always in the best direction and not smothered out.
Yes.
But really, I love that and channeling it in a positive direction for them to lead well, because there's also no smarter human on planet Earth than a junior high child.
Just
They've got it all down.
All. So, but I love that. Thanks for clarifying that anybody can be involved. So
Yes, and I think the cool part about FCA too is that for me, even like naturally, FCA historically from the 80s up to the thousands even has usually been like a speaker coming to speak, and maybe you'll hear some scriptures here and there. And that's totally been transformed basically within the last, I'd say, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, maybe
And
5.
it was kind of within the time frame that Corbin was coming into play with the discipleship, is we were recognizing that it was relatively shallow. I mean that as nice as I can. And we wanted to be able to have true discipleship tools. So a lot of people involved in FCA across the world got together and created what we have as the E3 discipleship training. And so that is the flagship, that is the play that we run here in the Permian Basin. And we're actually leading the way when it comes to Texas on teaching these tools. So those are simple tools as what I just shared, Discovery Bible Study, or how to share your testimony. These are the 3 parts you have to have in a testimony. And we look at the Bible, I mean, there was really 2 things in the Bible that says we're going to conquer the beast with in Revelation. That's the blood of the Lamb, which means knowing the good news, and the word of your testimony. And if you start teaching these elementary, junior high, and high school kids how to share their testimony, how to share the 4, which is how to share the good news. It's 4 points we teach, which is God is love, sin separates us, Christ rescues us, and will you trust him? I mean, like it's as simple as that can be. We have bracelets. I have my daughter. We have kids that they can do the 4 and share the 4 right now.
Mm.
And so we're teaching these discipleship tools with everyone, every level, from elementary, our own kids within the FCA board, all the way up to college, and then after that. And so if you keep seeing that consistency, you're going to hear these kids, they know these tools now. They're teaching them to other people. An example I have right now is Tucker is a guy that I've spent a lot of time with at our huddle. He is now discipling 3 kids, including his own brother. And his own brother shared his testimony just this past week at our FCA Olympics event. And so just an example of like the discipleship is happening right here in the Permian Basin.
I love
It doesn't need to happen in a building. Like I think we need to get out of our Western mindset. Like you weren't told in the book of Acts to go build a building. You were told to go and make disciples, baptize them, and teach them to obey the commands. That's the Great Commission, period. Doesn't matter what denomination you come from, that's what he told us. And I believe that the command has never changed. From the beginning of time, he told us to be fruitful and multiply. Throughout all the Old Testament, he says, be fruitful and multiply, and a lot of people don't do it. He scatters the languages, and then you get to the New Testament. Be fruitful and multiply, but he does it in a different way. Don't just be fruitful in your land. Don't just be fruitful in the animals that you have or the people and your children. Now be fruitful spiritually in discipleship. And I think the command is never going to change. We're supposed to be fruitful and multiply in every area that we're in.
And to speak to that, I think it's so true. Giving people the tools and giving students the tools to be able to share that are so critical, but also having people to help walk alongside with them, because I know as a young growing up, I feel like I was provided a lot of tools, but it didn't challenge me in that life was hard. There was a lot of things that I couldn't answer, and there was challenges just spiritually of, okay, how can I trust the Lord when I see all these things happening or I'm experiencing hard things? And I think that um yes, the gospel is totally good news and it is our hope, but also we have to know that when we walk in the reality of what life throws our way, that the Lord is there and that He allows us those stories. And so I think there's
Yes.
just pieces of that I feel are so important to not just be about the checklist of, and I'm not saying that you are, but I was raised in that. And so that's been really important to me just to see like it's walking with people and understanding that we don't have it all together and knowing that these students have a place that they can ask questions and trust and
Mhm.
and have that. I love that as well. So okay, I lost my train of thought on something, so maybe it'll come back. But tell us a little bit just about I appreciate Leslie's question about who can just be involved in those kinds of things. What does it look like for somebody as an adult to want to get involved with what you guys do, and what are the different pathways that they can be involved either through donations, physical donations sometimes, certain times of the year,
Mhm.
but also just being involved in the lives of kids or at camp,
Yes.
those kinds of things. So tell us a little bit about where people can get involved and the different ways that they can use what God's given them.
As far as we have huddles that we're right now, we're on every junior high and high school campus in Midland. We're working to get there in Odessa.
Mhm.
We finally have a a staff member in Odessa, so that's coming. But as far as to get involved, we need people to volunteer at our huddles, to be there
Mhm.
to help talk,
Yes.
answer these questions, help lead, not necessarily lead a small group because we want the kids to do that,
Yes.
but to be there to have their back per se, to answer those hard questions that some kids don't know yet.
Yeah.
And so so volunteering at local huddles, that is a huge um our all-star event that we have in the summers. We're looking for community involvement in what we do huddles in the evenings. So we need people to come in and help sit in those small in huddles are small groups.
Yeah.
So um uh food, these huddles, kids are hungry all the time.
Yes.
So they love having snacks or food. Like I said, some huddles meet first thing in the morning before school. So having something there for them to eat. Some meet in the evenings. Usually lunchtime, we have the kids bring their own lunch, but there are certain huddles that they have volunteers that bring lunch. So if
Yes.
you like to cook, you want to just be there to see everything, helping serve food and bringing food is a great way to get involved. All of our huddles are not times or anything, but we have a list on our website, which is permianbasinfca.org. So you can go there and see where we have huddles, and they can always call or email us. And we can get them involved or get them in contact with the huddle leader that's on campus.
Mhm.
Um,
And
what
then
else
do
am I
you
missing?
have that on, I believe on the on your website,
Mhm.
you've got just the different ways because I know there's applications,
Mhm.
Yes.
there's, those kinds of processes.
Yes.
And I know that we've helped you kind of work
Mhm.
through that with every neighbor, but you have that on there so they can go directly there
Yes.
and get involved in that beginning that process of what
Mhm.
that looks like.
Well, they can go to our website or through your website, Every Neighbor, because we do require everybody that volunteers to have a ministry leadership application, an MLA. It just kind of tells us where you're at with your walk, and it's just we also do a background check on everybody. It just saves all of us a
Yeah.
little bit of headache. So,
Mhm.
we implement several other
Mhm.
trainings that just here in the Permian Basin because sexual awareness training, and we do background checks yearly to make sure that we have the right people in place. So, and all that can be found either on our website or again, just email us and we can get you
Yeah.
locked in or
That's good.
connected with somebody.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
No, that hits all the points.
That's all it.
Basically, if you love the mission of FCA, which is reaching as many people as we can through the influence of coaches and athletes, we want them to hear the good news. Just let us know, because it could be simply passing out food. It could be leading Bible studies. It could be doing all kinds of stuff. If you're a good cook, I would say I loved FCA growing up when Mama Marks would make us homemade brownies, homemade tacos. Like, that was great. Like that. So if you can cook and bring food to a huddle, that is awesome.
Well, that we haven't even talked about Fields of Faith that
We hadn't
happened.
talked about Fields of Faith.
Yeah.
That
Talk about
happens
it.
in
Yeah.
October, and we're always needing volunteers there to come, because we're Permian Basin. We try to have it student led, so we want students' testimonies. We want them praying. We want the kids to come and hear their peers.
Mhm.
And so after, we usually have a call for kids that want to grow their relationship or don't know the next steps. So we need volunteers there to help with those decisions and those walks to help point them in the right direction. So,
Yes.
And tell us right now, because Fields of Faith, it always happens in the fall, and but I know initially, I mean, that's been happening in Midland for a long time, but I know you're in Odessa, correct? And then where else are you having Fields of Faith? Because I think you've seen participation from other
this
people in the
past year,
region.
we had 6 different Fields of Faiths
Yes, ma'am.
within the Permian Basin. So we had Midland and Odessa both had theirs. We had one in McCamey, one out in Howard County in Cahoma, and then we helped with Seminoles.
Hmm.
And
And
also
Andrews.
Grady.
Andrews didn't do it this year. They've done it the last 2 years, but they took a year off. Great, and then Grady had
Brady.
Yeah, Grady.
Good.
Yeah, Andrews was the big one when you had Tim Tebow, and then
Ray Lewis.
yeah, Ray Lewis came out.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, so tell us, I love that there's lots of different ways that people can be involved, and it's not necessarily, I mean, huddles happen during the year, obviously, but just that commitment can happen at different events, different times for people to be a part, and that's what we want everybody to know. But I think just being able to pour into lives and know that you made a difference through cooking or through actually, answering questions on a field and investing in people. And it's worth the time. I've done the MLA, and it's worth the time commitment. It's worth all of those things. I think a lot of times people are like, how many forms do I have to fill out? But I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like this, it's for the safety of the kids and for them
Yes.
as
It's
well.
like Dustin Pierce, our area director, he says all the time, he's like, we live in a broken world,
Yeah.
and we have to take those steps to protect our athletes and students that are coming and being there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think it's just important for even when we consider that there might be donors listening to people that, and it doesn't have to be, you know, big money, but like that anybody can give. It's small gifts too that we always want to encourage people. It's
Yeah.
not about just hey, it's the one with all the zeros and the commas, but it could be just a consistent gift of $25 a month, or whatever that looks
Yeah.
like. And so just having that transparency as an organization to say this is where your money's going, those kinds of things. And I think that just helps that donor know you're taking the steps, you're doing the processes and the efficient work behind the
Right.
scenes to put kids in a place that's safe. And that's important to on a lot of different levels, but it's important as a donor as well to know the transparency and what you guys are doing. So, um, Taylor, I'm going to ask you a question about, just because we've talked about students, we've talked about how ways people can get involved with the volunteer, but what has it meant for you to not only have coaches who are invested, and then to think about all the coaches that you have in the region that help out with these endeavors, but also you as a player, like your role in that? How have you seen just the investment that people have made into you and what that looks like specifically?
I will tell you that the influence of a coach is bigger than any other influence of any professional job because they could either make or break an athlete, not only in their sports career, but in their life. Because there's things to this day that I will not do because my coach in high school told me not to. And it's just a discipline that's ingrained in me. I had the luxury of being able to call Coach Morton, who was my high school coach. He would tell us there's no shortcuts to success, and there's this little corner of the grass by the facility that we could never touch. And he would stand there and make sure no one touched it. And to this day, I have never touched that grass every single time I've been there. But the things that he taught me, whether it be learning about the Bible, learning about, he would make us memorize different verses or quotes. And do no discipline is one. He would say discipline is doing what has to be done when it needs to be done, doing it that way every time. And they would question us in off season. And if you messed it up, then we would have punishment during off season. And so everyone had to memorize it. Well, my daughter, her word for the year a couple years ago was discipline. And so I trained her and gave her, this is your definition of discipline. And if you're to ask her 6-year-old today what discipline is, she can tell you. And so you think about that kind of influence that coaches have on athletes, it's going the next generation. And so these coaches, sometimes they don't realize how important their influence is. You know, one of the amazing things that I love to be part of is during our All-Star week is that we spend every morning with our coaches that are coaching in the All-Star week and All-Star games. We disciple them. So we are giving them all the discipleship tools that we can teach in a very small amount of time. And now these coaches are coming back and coming back. And Coach Jostlin's a great example. I mean, he's been with us for both years, right? Or just one?
Well, he missed the first year because he
So
had
he was
an
only with
emergency.
us for discipleship last year. And so I technically only had 3 1-hour meetings with him and all the rest of the coaches. And in that time frame, he goes, I did not realize that I've been missing out on a lot of opportunities. And that next week, he started a Bible study huddle out on the field back there in Kahoma, which is full circle
Mhm.
Yeah.
there. And so there he's leading Bible studies consistently, and it's just exploded out there. And then lo and behold, the scoreboard starts taking care of itself. Kahoma's athletics program has probably had the best year it's had in
Well,
a
shout out
very
to the
long time.
softball team that's going for their three-peat for state. So
So it's this is not about X's and O's and winning games, but the reality is that the coach's influence is going generations forward, and the coach's influence is transforming everything else that we want, which is we want to win games. It all is included. I always tell my athletes all the time, if I had 10 guys next to me that they're not afraid to die because they know their home is in heaven, I don't even need to look at that scoreboard. The scoreboard will take care of itself. And I know that if I can't walk off this field, it's because I gave my heart out and the other 10 guys next to me did as well. And if you think about that on a sports level, if you can train everybody to understand that it's not about you, that your home is in heaven, if you truly believe, and your whole job is just to do the good works that were already created for you, Ephesians 2:10, then just enjoy it. And that scoreboard takes care of itself. I mean, that is FCA in a nutshell.
well, and as a parent, to know that the person that my kid spends the most time with, their coach,
Mm.
is teaching them the good news. I mean,
It's huge.
yeah.
It's huge.
And
We-
modeling that in their life.
Yes.
Because I
Yes.
agree. I can think back to coaches in my life that were wrecking.
Yes.
And I don't like to think of myself as a grudge holder, but I probably would not spend time talking to them at this point still in my life
Mm,
because they didn't live out that example. And then as a mom, watching some of that play out in my own kids' lives, my oldest two, seeing some of them who have done very well and coached very well and with integrity and are still mentors in my kids' lives.
yes.
And they're at college, one's at tech. And so I been a recipient of that on the not good side personally,
Mm,
but then have watched that on the not good side for my children, but have also seen it play out with some really great coaches. So you're exactly right. It does live on past,
it's-
right now, this season, and
It
it
is.
does matter.
It does. I think there's in college, I had a coach, Coach Jameson. He coached me and he happened to coach my brother at the Air Force Academy. Kind of crazy.
Oh,
When after I lost my dad my senior year in college, I was a mess. I was a wreck. And those coaches were there in the hospital while my dad was dying. That following month, me and my wife, we found out we were pregnant. We had 10 month 10 month or a 10-week-old baby at the time. We would go to the checkup after my dad passed away and we lose the baby. And so that was like 4 weeks of my senior season that I missed. And I remember going to that same coach that was there with me watching my dad die. I went to him and just cried in his arms. I was like, what am I supposed to do? Lost my dad. Now I lost the baby. And to this day, I still will keep up with that coach. And he would teach us scripture while we were watching film. And it was those things that I remember that he said, go be with your wife. When you're ready, come back. Came back, still played for him, still finished out the season. He still supported me. And those are things that I will never forget. So there's so many examples of coaches that have transformed my life. And so I think about for FCA here, if we can change one coach to be able to impact just one kid, that's worth it.
Yeah.
But the reality is that FCA is impacting many of coaches over the whole Permian Basin. And there's no telling how many athletes are being changed right now.
I
So
love that. Thanks for sharing that,
Yes.
because it's the truth of even going back to just the hard questions, the hard realities that we face, and we need community around us to be that. And in this case with FCA, like how um just you have that opportunity to be that in kids' lives, whether you're a coach or a person that just loves sports. You love football, you love volleyball, you love, all those kinds of things, to invest in, young men and women who are trying to just do life and figure it out. And so I love that. So Leslie and I have a little surprise at the end. It's not going to be hard, I promise. But
it's a quiz.
so
It's a quiz.
so what's really important in my life, not only scripture, but just encouraging words. And that's part of the Good Work West Texas podcast, that we just want to encourage people to, um, be encouraged by listening, honestly, and be informed and those kinds of things. So Leslie's done the hard work of, we've got a bag of quotes that we want you to pick one,
Oh,
and I'm not going to shake it, but and then you can let Taylor take one.
Two.
So we just want you to read it and then kind of just tell us what your first response is, or maybe a story or something that maybe where you are right now, or
so mine is everything changes.
everything changes.
Hmm. My first initial was to talk about All Stars for FCA, um, because it's been a huge change for Permian Basin FCA. Like I said, when I came on staff, we were just starting the conversation about All Stars,
Mhm.
and we had 2 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees, and All Stars has made a huge difference. It's allowed us to pour into coaches and for them to take it back to their school and want FCA in their schools. So it's made a path for us to get into the schools and get in with these kids and coaches, and not even not all coaches, even just teachers that are coming alongside and wanting to help and seeing what it's doing. Um, I remember the first August that I was on staff, we were doing, I don't know what they call it, Bulldog Days, I think is what they call it. And one of the teachers came up and it was asking when the high school meets, because he had been at SJ, and he had started going to the huddle there because one of his students invited him to come. And he's like, I didn't go for a long time because I wasn't I was struggling with what I believed and what I wanted. And he's like, and that student just kept on me about coming and being there. And he's like, I did. And he's like, it's changed me. And he's like, I've gotten back in church. And he wanted to find out when the high school huddle was meeting so he could go be a part of it. Um, so yeah, there's stories like that
Wow.
all. And I think All Stars has just made that path. And so everything changes. Our big picture is to add more sports, to make, to get more students here, get more coaches here.
Hmm.
So yeah, everything changes and then for me personally, I'll be stepping down from my admin role soon. And but I'm gonna go back, stay on the board and still help. And I'm hoping that I can get more involved with huddles because as an admin, we're busy in the office and doing everything to support the reps. So I'm excited to be able to
Right.
be in the trenches with and helping them a little more than doing just I don't want to say just the background work because
Yeah. It's
admins
important.
admins take on a lot. And so
That's-
yeah, so that kind of what that meant for
I love
me.
that. I love that. Taylor, what's yours?
Before I bring that up, like Tori is not just admin. She's like
Just an admin, like
she
you
is.
said.
She's like our FCA superhero.
Oh, I wouldn't go.
And as I was looking at this, it says take care of each other. I see it full circle with the Andres family because with Tori and Andres, and then with their kids, with Tristan played football with my younger brother Caleb, so I've known them since they were tiny. And then you have Kyle and Max. Well, I remember that Tristan reached out to me when I was in college, and Kyle was sick, and that was really bad. That was a very tough time for him. He couldn't eat for I don't know, it was over a long time. And
Several
he
months.
just said, "Hey, can Tristan said," and this is amazing to think about too. Tristan is the one that started FCA Olympics that we still have today, and that's pretty wild. But then on top of that, he told me, "Hey, can you get guys together from your team and just come see Kyle?" And we had never done that before in the history of tech. And so we did that and we go to see Kyle and I don't know, he didn't really smile that much that day, but I know it meant a lot to him in the long run.
Ugh.
And he's doing so much better
Yeah,
now.
y'all,
It's amazing
you
his
have
story.
no idea. Y'all came twice while he was in the hospital there that time because he spent about a month there in Lubbock. And you have no idea the impact that you boys had on that kid.
Well, and you had guys that showed up that are now still playing Canadian Football League and the NFL. And we have that photo of them being there. And so I just think about that. Like Tristan just said, will you get guys together to show up? Well, then what happened is right after that, Texas Tech realized how important it was for us to do that. So we started going to see the Ronald McDonald House at that same hospital, like as far as I remember when I was there.
Yeah.
And so you got guys like Patrick Mahomes, who's now a multi-billionaire, was showing up to the hospitals because Tristan Martinez asked me if I'd bring athletes to come to the hospital.
I love that.
So like when I think of like take care of each other, like there's so many ways, but it just takes a simple phone call or just answering whatever you feel to be obedient. And then fast forward, I remember my dad passes away. Andres has already dealt with hospitals and dealt with everything related to being sick with him personally and then with Kyle. And so when my dad was sick and we're like a month in the hospital and then all the medical bills start hitting later and I got to figure out how to deal with my dad's business and the finances with my family because I'm the oldest. Andres is the one that called me. He's like, you call them, you negotiate with them, you don't pay a single dollar, you do this and that. Like they've taken care of us forever. And
And
so
likewise.
it's so cool to see that if you just take care of each other, just be obedient to the calls, like God's going to work within you and you may not even see, like now I get to see the full circle stories. That's the cool part.
I love that. Awesome. Thanks so much for just sharing. I love if you were scared at first, I hope you're not now. I love just being able to just be blessed by hearing the stories of good and just of people saying yes, of people noticing just those things and to be able to take care of each other and it happens in relationships and we just love that and thanks for just telling your stories and being with us today. And Leslie, do you have any last comments before we close it out?
Yeah, I think maybe someone needs to start an FCS, a Fellowship of Christian Students.
We've had that. We've had that said so many times. So many times.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much for being with us. And
Thanks for having
we
us.
love it.
Yeah.
So
It was
Yes.
fun.
anyway,
We appreciate it. Thank y'all for
Yeah.
y'all's partnership. Thank you to every neighbor.
yeah.
Yes.
For me on the ministry side, I couldn't get we have like 50 adult leaders
Mhm.
leading Bible studies this coming All-Star event. So every single athlete, whether they know it or not, they're going to read the whole book of First John. They're going to hear it during lunch, dinner, and then someone's dedicated to reading the Bible with them at night. So
awesome.
thank y'all for making that happen.
Yes.
'cause
Thank you for your platform.
we can't
Thanks.
bring these volunteers in without every neighbor.
Oh,
So that's
well,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.